My sibling attempted to seize the entire legacy and set me up during the legal proceedings, with our folks supporting her. Moments afterward, a gentleman entered and made them turn ashen. The court officer announced the matter in a monotone, like reciting everyday items, and my sibling rose prior to the concluding word. She was keen to acquire my grandpa's possessions instead of commemorating him. She donned a custom beige jacket atop ebony attire. The sort of understated elegance that convinces others you're right prior to uttering a word. Her locks were impeccable. Her complexion was unmoistened. And as she gazed at me, her gaze lacked sorrow. It was an assessment. Her legal representative, clad in a sharp outfit, gentle tone, and costly timepiece, neared the advisory bench with a slim bundle of documents and pushed them ahead like a dagger. "Your Honor," he responded. "We're seeking prompt assignment of the property to my patron, valid that very day." Our parents inclined their heads in unison behind him, as though they'd rehearsed it before reflection. My mom's palms were crossed reverently, as if she were at a worship service. And my dad gazed forward steadily, chin firm as if this were a corporate discussion and I was the obstacle. The magistrate didn't glance at them initially. He glanced at me. "Mr. Hale," he uttered, his pitch even. "Do you contest?" My sibling's mouth curved slightly, as though she couldn't hold back from hearing me plead. I didn't. I straightened my posture, placed my palms on the surface, and ensured my tone stayed steady. "Yes," I replied. "I contest." Her legal rep grinned subtly and condescendingly. "On what basis?" he questioned, already sure he'd overpower me. I didn't offer a debate. Not immediately. "I wish to hold off until the final individual shows up," I informed them. The magistrate winked once. "The final individual?" he echoed. I affirmed. "Yes, Your Honor." My sibling emitted a brief chuckle devoid of amusement. "This is absurd," she declared. "No one else exists." My dad at last shifted his head a bit toward me, reminiscent of my adolescent years, signaling I was shaming the kin. "You constantly pull this," he grumbled audibly enough. The magistrate reclined, fixing his spectacles. "Ms. Hale," he responded. "This is inheritance court, not a theatre. If you possess a contestation, it needs to be lawful." "It is lawful," I stated serenely. "But it's not my role to clarify." My sibling's legal rep neared, tone silky. "Your Honor," he elaborated. "We're asking for an urgent designation since Ms. Hale has been obstructive. There are holdings that require safeguarding, and my patron is the accountable one." Accountable. That term was perpetually wielded as a tool in our household. It signified granting us authority without inquiries. My mom exhaled gently, as though troubled by my childishness. "She's mourning," she informed the magistrate. "She fails to grasp how such matters function." My sibling's gaze stayed on me, vivid and icy. "I'm merely attempting to prevent chaos," she conveyed to me. "Grandpa would desire it managed correctly." I gazed at her, pondering how swiftly she'd secured a legal expert, how rapidly the application emerged, and how refined our parents seemed positioned behind her like supporting vocalists. The magistrate flipped a sheet in the dossier. "This application demands complete power over the property," he notified me. "It claims the defendant isn't suitable to join and might obstruct." My sibling's legal rep affirmed. "Accurate." "And you desire me to approve it that very day," the magistrate declared. "Yes, Your Honor," the legal rep answered. "Is it operative right away?" The magistrate gazed at me once more. "Ms. Hale," he responded. What's your contestation? I maintained my stance unchanging. My contestation is that they are urging you to proceed sans the complete documentation, I clarified. My sibling chuckled more harshly. No concealed documentation exists, she countered. He passed away. This is the process. The magistrate's demeanor stayed unaltered, but his tolerance waned. Ms. Hale, he notified my sibling. You shall not interject improperly. My dad's mouth compressed. My mom's gaze constricted, as though she resented correction. My sibling's legal rep tried to mend the scenario with courtesy. Your Honor, if Ms. Hale desires postponement, we contest. The property cannot linger. I didn't glance at him. I glanced at the magistrate. It won't constitute a postponement, I declared. It'll be mere minutes. The magistrate breathed out and gazed toward the chamber entrances, evidently pondering whether to indulge me. Who are we awaiting? He inquired. I answered with the plainest fact I could voice. The individual who truly oversees the legacy, I amended myself. My sibling's demeanor tensed initially. That's me, she uttered instinctively, but halted when the magistrate's glance darted her direction. The magistrate inclined ahead a bit. Ms. Hale, he conveyed to me. If this is a ploy, it isn't, I responded. I'm requesting you to permit the documentation to reach before you endorse anything. A moment of quiet. Then the chamber entrances parted. Not a theatrical fling, but a precise, deliberate thrust, as if someone pursued a goal. A gentleman arrived attired in a dark outfit so simple it mimicked a uniform. No ostentatious neckwear or adornments on his wrist, solely an envelope and a composed demeanor as if indifferent to who held wealth in this space. He proceeded straight to the recorder's station, ignoring our parents or sibling. He raised the envelope, articulated distinctly, and referenced my name. Ms. Hale. The magistrate winked, grasped his spectacles anew, and eyed the envelope as though it didn't fit in his chamber. The gentleman in the dark outfit didn't elevate his tone. He didn't justify himself. He merely positioned the envelope on the recorder station with one palm and declared, "This is for the tribunal from the oversea." The magistrate unsealed the envelope, perused the originator line, and shifted his lips as if he'd vocalized prematurely. "That can't exist," he whispered. The magistrate didn't unseal the envelope like ordinary correspondence. He grasped it betwixt two digits, rotated it once, and examined the sender address anew, as if the pigment would alter with prolonged staring. Then he tore it open. No embellishment, just a neat tear, as though he desired the material to cease feigning superiority over its contents. The chamber was so hushed that I could detect my sibling's legal rep adjusting his balance. The magistrate started by extracting a solitary creased paper. Dense material, imprinted emblem in the edge, and an endorsement area that seemed overly official for what our kin treated as a familial gathering. As he skimmed the initial line, his chin stiffened. Then he vocalized the originator. Hawthorne Countrywide Financial Institution Fiduciary Division. My sibling's countenance wavered briefly before she restored her poise. She'd devoted her life to finances. Hearing a financial entity's title in public tribunal ought to have rendered her seem authoritative. Instead, it rendered her seem ensnared. The magistrate persisted in perusing. "This is an announcement of fiduciary management," he conveyed to me. It indicates the departed's holdings were positioned in a modifiable fiduciary, and that the fiduciary turned unmodifiable upon demise. My sibling's counsel stood swiftly. "Your Honor, we're in inheritance proceedings." The magistrate didn't even glance upward. "Be seated," he directed. He flipped another sheet. "And this," he uttered softly, is a validation of fiduciary naming the oversee. He halted anew, as if the subsequent line opposed his comprehension of how disputes should operate. Then he perused it. Replacement Oversee, Hawthorne Countrywide Financial Institution Fiduciary Division. Our parents rigidified since they sought dominance. A financial entity isn't worried about dominance like households are. A financial entity concerns itself with papers, conditions, and hazards. My sibling's legal rep tried to recuperate with assurance. Your Honor, even with a fiduciary, inheritance retains authority over the property. The magistrate ultimately glanced up. Advocate, the counsel responded. Your application sought all of legacy operative right away. He contacted the document once with his digit. This fiduciary validation declares plainly that the inheritance property is nominal and the bulk of holdings reside in fiduciary. He pivoted to the recorder. Note this as accepted, he declared. Then he gazed at my sibling. Not as a kin, not as a relative, but as an applicant who had just endeavored to claim something she didn't possess. Ms. Hale, he uttered to her. Were you aware your grandpa created a fiduciary with the institutional oversee? My sibling elevated her chin. He was swayed, she clarified. He didn't comprehend what he endorsed. The magistrate didn't dispute her sentiments. He raised the ensuing sheet. This announcement encompasses a duplicate of the fiduciary's implementation sworn statement and the roster of observers, said the advocate. It also encompasses a legal certification that the departed endorsed with complete ability. My dad's mouth compressed. My mom's gaze narrowed, as though seeking a fresh perspective. And then the magistrate encountered a line that prompted him to murmur. That can't reside there initially. He perused it gradually so none could later assert misunderstanding. No challenge provision was activated. Any recipient who submits an application to capture fiduciary holdings contrary to the conditions loses the allocation. My sibling's legal rep's countenance paled. My sibling's gaze expanded mildly, then constricted, as though trying to frighten the document into retreating. My mom uncrossed her palms initially. The magistrate glanced up. Advocate, he conveyed to my sibling's legal rep, you submitted an application for the prompt assignment of all legacy to your patron. Yes, Your Honor, the legal rep answered cautiously. You comprehend, the magistrate uttered, that this provision is binding. The deed of submitting your application might already have caused loss. The advocate gulped. Your Honor, we challenge the legitimacy. The magistrate interrupted him. You may challenge it, he uttered. But you can't feign it doesn't exist. He gazed at me anew. Ms. A. Hale, he responded. You requested to pause until the final individual appeared. Was this the individual? Yes, I responded. Though my heartbeat had ascended to my neck, my tone stayed even. The fiduciary division is the overseer. They possess authority over the allocation. The gentleman in the dark outfit, still positioned near the recorder as though part of a routine, vocalized initially. Your Honor, he uttered serenely and distinctly. I am not present to debate. I'm present to supply announcement and verify the overseer's stance. The magistrate motioned once. Declare it, he responded. The gentleman didn't gaze at our parents. He didn't gaze at my sibling. He gazed at the magistrate. The overseer does not acknowledge the applicant's demand, he conveyed to me. The overseer will not allocate holdings to anyone based on the application submitted that very day. The overseer will manage per the fiduciary conditions and has requested the tribunal to reject any effort to capture fiduciary-managed holdings via inheritance. My sibling erupted. You can't simply. The magistrate elevated his palm. "Ms. I hail," he proclaimed sharply. "You shall not interject improperly." My sibling closed her mouth, but her respiration altered. "Quicker now. Shallower." Her advocate stood anew, trying to reclaim territory. "Your Honor, at least, we apply to force disclosure of the complete fiduciary," he uttered in reply. "We doubt if my patron was wrongly excluded or if undue sway by the defendant exists." The magistrate's gaze didn't mellow. "Undue sway is a grave claim," he conveyed to reporters. "And you just observed audio proof of tried pressure directed at the departed, which didn't originate from the defendant." My dad's chin jerked. The magistrate pivoted back to the gentleman in black. "Has the overseer provided the fiduciary document to advocate?" he questioned. "Yes," the gentleman answered. "A full duplicate was provided to both parties the prior evening through verified delivery." My mom's head whipped at my sibling's legal rep like a lash. The prior evening, suggesting they knew or ought to have known, and thus submitted regardless. The magistrate permitted that detail to absorb for an instant before gazing at my sibling with revulsion. "Ms. Hale," he inquired, "did you obtain the fiduciary papers the prior evening?" My sibling's lips separated, and initially, she seemed less like a manager and more like an ensnared individual. She commenced. Her legal rep interceded swiftly. "Your Honor, we acquired a package, but..." The magistrate halted him. "Advocate," he signaled. "If you acquired a package containing a no-challenge provision and still submitted an application demanding all legacy operative right away, I desire you to comprehend what that appears like to this tribunal." The legal rep remained motionless. The magistrate pivoted to the recorder. "Schedule a session," he demanded, "on status and penalties, and I desire the oversized correspondence entered into the documentation." He then gazed straight at my sibling. "And Ms. Hale," he uttered with a chillier pitch, "if you are a designated recipient and you activated loss that very day, you might have deprived yourself more than planned." My sibling's countenance tensed into something disagreeable. Her gaze met mine, and the animosity there wasn't for funds. It was regarding how the establishment she anticipated to elevate her had just marked her as a threat. Then she performed what she invariably did when unable to triumph at documentation. She tried to triumph with a fresh narrative. "Your Honor," she uttered suddenly, her tone elevated, pivoting to the platform with rehearsed haste. "I need to place something in the documentation." The magistrate's gaze constricted. "What?" he declared. "Precisely." My sibling gazed at me straight, and uttered the single term our parents had reserved like ammunition. "Senior mistreatment." The magistrate's demeanor altered, not because he trusted her, but because the tribunal now needed to determine if she possessed proof or if she was about to self-destruct with another bogus claim. "Senior mistreatment," my sibling uttered louder, as if loudness could transform charge into proof. My mom's countenance mellowed instantly into staged sorrow. My dad reclined in his seat, his gaze narrowing as if this was the scheme they'd awaited to deploy. Her legal rep positioned beside her, as though granted a crisis escape. "Your Honor," he declared, "we seek a prompt inquiry." The defendant separated the departed, limited entry, and pressured him into endorsing papers that advantaged her. The magistrate didn't respond like an afternoon broadcast crowd. He responded like a magistrate. He inclined ahead and uttered, "Advocate, these are grave charges. What proof do you hold from that very day?" My sibling didn't wink. "Observers," she uttered, motioning rearward. Three kin stood uneasily in the rear seats, as though conscripted. My aunt and a relative I seldom conversed with. Their demeanors were strained and their glances averted from me. My mom affirmed encouragingly at them, as though guiding them wordlessly. The magistrate gazed at them, unimpressed. "Observers can affirm," he uttered. "But I require something tangible. Health documents, prior grievances, law enforcement documents, and APS participation. Anything." My sibling stiffened her chin. "He didn't wish to shame the kin," she clarified rapidly. "He was frightened." The magistrate's demeanor stayed even. "Then clarify why he summoned Crisis 8 himself," he directed. "Quiet." My sibling tried to shift. "He was bewildered," she clarified. "He didn't recognize what he did." The magistrate redirected his gaze to the institution's envelope. This fiduciary was implemented with her ability sworn statement and observers," a tone responded. "That's not bewilderment, that's formalized purpose." My dad's legal rep elevated his tone silky. "Your Honor, we also possess proof the defendant had entry to profiles and managed exchanges." Daniel Mercer ascended promptly. "Contestation," he declared. "This is assertion sans basis." The magistrate elevated a palm. "Advocate," he questioned my sibling's legal rep, "do you hold that proof here?" My sibling's advocate paused mildly. Then he performed what advocates do when they possess a tale but not the proof. "We would seek revelation," he uttered. The magistrate's gaze solidified. "Revelation isn't a probing permit," he clarified. "You do not charge someone of senior mistreatment in public tribunal as a tactic to capture holdings held in fiduciary." My sibling's cheeks reddened. "It's not a tactic," she countered. The magistrate reclined. "Then present the proof," he uttered. "Not dramatic kin." My mother's tone quivered, rehearsed. "Your Honor," she responded. "She barred us. She caused him to despise us." The magistrate glanced at her once. "Madam," he responded. "This isn't kin counseling." Then he directed his focus to the sole individual in the space with no sentimental investment, only dutiful obligation. He addressed the gentleman attired in black. "Sir," he questioned, "does the oversay possess any records of worries about undue sway or mistreatment?" The gentleman didn't delay. "No, Your Honor," he answered. The oversay performed a routine admission. The departed and advocate convened privately. He verified his purpose. The oversay acquired a directive correspondence and backing items. The magistrate's gaze sharpened. "Backing items?" he questioned. "Yes," the gentleman replied. "A record and a declaration. The departed desired them safeguarded." My sibling's head jerked upward. "Which declaration?" she insisted. The magistrate didn't gaze at her. "Supply," he directed the gentleman. The gentleman extended into another envelope he clutched, which I'd missed since it was slimmer and unlabeled, and passed it to the recorder. The recorder passed it to the magistrate. The magistrate unsealed it and extracted a solitary sheet correspondence. He perused silently for several instants, his gaze shifting with cautious focus. Then he glanced up at me, not warmly, but with the gravity of something he acknowledged. "Ms. Hale," he uttered. "Did you know your grandpa prepared a scripted declaration foreseeing the charges made that very day?" "Yes," I answered softly. He informed me he did, but I didn't know what he scripted. My sibling's respiration shifted. Her nails embedded into the advisory surface. The magistrate scrutinized the top of the correspondence, then he vocalized the initial line aloud. If you are perusing this in tribunal, it signifies my offspring and his kin attempted to claim my property by charging my granddaughter. My mom emitted a noise as though pierced. My dad's countenance grew stiff. My sibling's advocate descended gradually, as though he'd realized he stood on a snare entrance. The magistrate persisted in perusing, not entirely, but sufficient to render the documentation unambiguous. He perused that my grandpa had requested me to reside after his tumble. He discovered that he had convened with Advocate Solo. He perused that he had formed the fiduciary because he feared coercion methods and rapid endorsement requests. The magistrate then arrived at a point where his lips seemed to compress. He perused at once silently. Then he vocalized aloud. On the evening I summoned 911, my offspring brought a portable certifier to my residence to secure fresh endorsements. I declined. I requested observers. If they term it senior mistreatment, they are reflecting their own conduct. The chamber was utterly silent. Not a murmur. Not a hack. My sibling remained immobile, and I observed her gaze flickering as though seeking a method to endure the documentation. My dad's legal rep ascended slowly, his tone wary. "Now, Your Honor," he responded, "we contest hearsay." The magistrate interrupted him. "It's a declaration of purpose from the departed and presented to display his mindset, per him. And it's aligned with the response audio." He elevated the correspondence mildly. "This tribunal won't indulge a 11th hour senior mistreatment charge used to capture holdings managed by an institutional fiduciary," he uttered, each term deliberately selected. "If you desire to submit an application with proof, you may, but not that very day. Not this way." My sibling's legal rep gulped. "Your Honor," he uttered, "we prefer to retract the application." The magistrate's gaze remained icy. "You can't retract repercussions," he responded. "But you can cease excavating." He pivoted to the recorder. "Reject the application," he uttered. "And schedule and directive to demonstrate reasoned session concerning penalties for the submission and the untrue claims made that very day." My mom's countenance paled. My dad's chin tightened. My sibling's facade ultimately fractured. "So she obtains all," she erupted. The magistrate didn't recoil. "The fiduciary obtains managed per the conditions," he uttered. "And yes, MS. Hale's application to capture all legacy operative right-of-way is refused." My sibling's palms trembled now. She attempted to conceal it by clutching the surface edge. The gentleman in black vocalized anew, serene like a device declaring the subsequent phase. "The overseer will pause any allocations to entities who activated the no-challenge provision until additional examination," he uttered. "We will adhere to the fiduciary wording precisely." My sibling's head jerked toward him. "Pause," she whispered. "No, that's..." He didn't debate. "That is," he uttered plainly. The magistrate inclined ahead and uttered the final phrase my sibling didn't anticipate to hear. "Ms. Hale," he uttered, "you entered this chamber behaving as if it was already yours. Now you will depart with nothing resolved in your benefit that very day, and you will respond for the manner you tried to acquire it." My sibling's gaze shifted to me anew, laden with animosity and shame. Then she murmured, scarcely audible, "This isn't concluded." And that's when the court officer neared closely, silent, unceremonious, and conversed to the magistrate in a subdued pitch. The magistrate's demeanor shifted mildly as he attended. He affirmed once. Then he gazed straight at my dad. "Mr. Hale," he responded. "Stay positioned." My dad immobilized. "Why?" he questioned. The magistrate's tone remained even. Because, he uttered, I've just been notified there's an officer in the corridor with documents for you, and it isn't from this tribunal. My dad's countenance tightened. The chamber entrances parted anew, and a uniformed officer entered clutching a paper with a prominent title atop. I couldn't peruse it from my position, but I observed my dad's countenance turn ashen as the officer uttered, Sir, you've been delivered. My dad didn't assent. He didn't insist on regard. He merely gazed at the officer like the emblem had abruptly grown weightier than his funds. What is this? He questioned, tone constricted. The officer extended the bundle. Delivery of procedure, he uttered. You can receive it here or in the corridor. My dad's legal rep inclined toward him and murmured something pressing. My dad disregarded it and grabbed the documents, turning the initial sheet with quivering digits. His gaze traversed the title. Then he immobilized because this wasn't inheritance. This was penal. The magistrate observed him peruse, demeanor even. Mr. Hale, he uttered. This tribunal has no connection to that documents, but I will remind you that you remain sworn from prior affirmation. My dad gulped. Your Honor, he uttered compelling composure. This is persecution. Our kin is being aimed because my offspring. The magistrate halted him. Cease, he uttered. Your offspring isn't the one who summoned crisis aid to report a pressure effort. Your offspring isn't the one who submitted a bogus application in this tribunal. Your offspring isn't the one who tried to capture fiduciary holdings managed by an institutional trustee. My mom's mouth compressed. We were attempting to shield the kin. She murmured. The magistrate didn't mellow. Then you shielded it into a forwarding, he uttered. The officer adjusted his posture mildly, and I recognized he hadn't arrived solo. 3 uniforms positioned near the entrances, silent, not nearing, just existent in the manner enforcement becomes existent when anticipating flight or outburst. My sibling's legal rep cleared his throat. Your Honor, he uttered cautiously. We would seek a short break to consult with our patrons. The magistrate gazed at him like he was fatigued by further discourse. You can consult, he uttered. But this application is rejected. The overseer will manage the fiduciary, and I will view advocate return for the directive to demonstrate reason session. He grasped his writing tool, already pivoting away from them. Then he halted and glanced back once, like he'd recalled something vital. One ultimate issue, he uttered. The space stilled anew. He addressed the gentleman in the dark outfit. Sir, he uttered. Does the overseer seek any safeguarding directive? Yes, Your Honor, the gentleman answered promptly. Given the tried meddling, the overseer seeks a directive barring the applicants from reaching monetary entities, guardians, or external parties in an effort to access fiduciary holdings, and barring torment of the main recipient. My sibling's head jerked up. Torment? She mocked. The magistrate's gaze moved to her. Miss Hale, he uttered. You just charged someone of senior mistreatment in public tribunal without supplying proof. You are in no stance to mock. He pivoted back to the overseer's agent. Approved, he uttered. Prepare it. I will endorse that very day. My mom's countenance drained. You can't bar us from our own offspring, she uttered softly, her tone quivering. The magistrate's tone stayed even. You can bar yourselves from misconduct, he conveyed to me. Daniel Mercer inclined in and uttered. This is the purest directive we could have anticipated. I affirmed once, but my gaze stayed on our parents. My dad now clutched the penal documents in his palms, and I could observe the evaluation shifting behind his gaze. No regret. Harm management. The magistrate declared the session closed. The tribunal is adjourned, he uttered. My mom surged toward me in the passageway as the hammer descended. Not bodily, but near enough that the atmosphere changed. You caused this, she whispered. You destroyed your dad. I didn't, Rico. He destroyed himself, I commented softly. Victoria intervened, her tone a constricted murmur and her gaze frantic. You're going to forfeit everything, she declared. I'll ensure you do. I gazed at her and maintained my tone serene. You've already endeavored, I responded. And the overseer didn't even need to elevate its tone. My sibling's demeanor contorted. Do you think you're secure because an institution dispatched a representative? She expelled. I inclined in mildly, near enough that she could hear me over the corridor din. I think I'm secure because Grandpa prepared, I asserted. And because you can't intimidate a documentation. Her lips separated, and I could observe her readying to yell. Instead, she became frigid. She rotated her device screen downward, as though she'd just transmitted something she didn't desire seen. Daniel observed it too. His gaze shifted to her palms, then to mine. Don't interact, he whispered. We're departing. We exited through the lateral doorway. The tribunal exterior air was crisp and luminous, as though indifferent to what kin did to each other within. Daniel halted on the edge and gazed into my eyes. Here's the solid conclusion you desired, he uttered softly. Fiduciary oversees all. The application was rejected. The no challenge provision has been activated and will be imposed. Our parents lack entry, and the tribunal has just endorsed a directive preventing meddling. I affirmed. And your sibling? I questioned. Daniel's mouth compressed. If she's a designated recipient, she probably lost that very day, he conveyed to me. That's what her legal rep is comprehending now. We positioned there momentarily, merely inhaling. Daniel's device buzzed. He inspected it, and his demeanor shifted similarly to the terminal when the agent's pitch altered. What? I questioned. Daniel elevated the display. A notice. Formal. Brief. Hawthorne Countrywide Institutions Fiduciary Division. Protection warning. The tried entry has been prevented. My abdomen chilled because the session had concluded. The directive had been endorsed, but someone persisted in attempting to contact the funds. Daniel's tone grew soft. They're performing it currently, he clarified. I gazed at the warning. And in that instant, I comprehended. My sibling had not rotated her device screen downward to prevent yelling. She had rotated it downward as she acted. Daniel didn't squander a moment. He contacted the fiduciary division while we remained on the edge, the tribunal entrances behind us, and our parents within, feigning they hadn't been shamed. A lady answered with the stable, practiced serenity expected from individuals whose role is to avert catastrophes. Hawthorne fiduciary, she clarified. This connection is documented. How may I assist? This is Daniel Mercer, he uttered. Advocate for Marianne Hale. I've just acquired a protection warning. The tried entry has been prevented. I require details. There was a short halt with the noise of inputs clicking. The lady's pitch sharpened mildly. Do not alarm. Protocol. Yes, she responded. There was an effort to access the recipient interface. It failed the twin verification procedure. Right after, an effort was made to alter the contact number recorded. My mouth dried. Alter it to whom? I questioned. The fiduciary agent didn't answer directly. She questioned Daniel. Are you granting me approval to reveal the tried alteration demand information to your patron? Yes. Daniel answered immediately. The fiduciary agent continued. The tried contact number alteration demand was presented from a gadget linked to the applicant, Victoria Hale. I shut my eyes for a fraction of a second because I couldn't vision it flawlessly. Her turning her device screen downward in tribunal, as though concealing disgrace, when actually she was hiding deed. Daniel's tone stayed serene. Did she verify? He questioned. No. The fiduciary agent answered. The system refused the demand. A manual marker has been positioned. The allocation status has been altered to retain due to deception threat, awaiting examination. Daniel exhaled gradually. Excellent, he uttered. Halt all alterations. No modifications to interface contacts, contact numbers, emails, or locations without confirmed face-to-face verification. Already executed, she uttered. And a summary has been created. Daniel's jaws compressed. Transmit that summary to my workplace, he asked. And record, there's an active tribunal directive issued that very day barring meddling. Comprehended, she answered. We possess a tribunal directive recorded. The overseer will adhere. The contact concluded, and the quiet felt piercing. Daniel gazed at me. That warning, he uttered. This is precisely why institutional oversights exist.